A stronger day, be your best every day. Hi, I'm Demus, founder and director of Strong Optimizer. I aim to help you stay healthy, be happier, and deal with challenges with greater resilience. Do you know what is positive psychology and well-being science? Have you wondered how the science of positive psychology are helping individuals, communities, and organizations to thrive? Today, you will meet Associate Professor Aaron Jarden. Aaron will show you how to apply the science of positive psychology can enhance your well-being and build a flourishing life. Thank you. Hi, my name is Demus, and I'm the founder and director of Strengths Optimizer. Thank you for watching Strength Optimizer, the Science Up Your Wellbeing series. And today we have Associate Professor Aaron Jarden, who is the director of the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program at the Melbourne Uni, joining us today. How are you, Aaron?
I'm good. It's very pleasure to be here today, Demus. Thank you very much for the invitation.
No worries. Thank you so much once again for giving up your time to share with us your insights and wisdoms in the areas of the science of well-being and positive psychology. Well, Aaron, I noticed that you wear multiple hats in the field of well-being. How would you describe yourself as a well-being researcher, practitioner, and consultant?
I think the first thing to note is it's probably important to wear multiple hats. If you just wore one hat, if you were just a researcher and you weren't in touch with what was happening at the cold face of practice, you wouldn't really your research questions wouldn't be informed by actually what's happening in real life, so to speak. So that loop between research and practice is really important. And the consulting piece is also really important too, because I see my role as enabling others to deliver wellbeing programs and skills and assessments and evaluations, all that kind of thing, and at a higher level of quality, a quality where we're at with the level of science. So the consultant piece is about making sure better work kind of happens, but that loop between research and practice, I think, is really important. If you were just a practitioner and you weren't aware of the research, your practice would probably be suboptimal. But also, if you're a researcher and you're not really aware of what's happening in practice, you know, what's not going well and what's actually going well that's not being reported, then that really impacts the types of research questions that you can think about and you can ask. So I see all three really as critical to, especially in a new field that's developing.
Excellent. So sounds like it's very important to integrate between the research and the practice and let both of them to inform each other so that whatever, I guess, whether it's well-being programs or activities or recommendation is grounded by research, but yet also have the real-life applications.
Yeah, it's that feedback loop.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, well, we know that well-being is a buzzword right now, especially in the COVID pandemic. And we know that there are many definitions, theories, understandings, and even practices when it comes to well-being. Here is the million-dollar question for you, Aaron. What is well-being and why it matters?
I guess it's a great question. It's a great question to start with too, because I think the short answer to that is if words get their meaning by how people use them in their language, they'll mean things to different people. Words will have different meanings, and the word well-being is no different to that. So what I mean by well-being is likely to be different by what you mean by well-being is different to what the next person means. So the first place to start in any kind of intervention or conversation around well-being is just unpacking what people mean by the word well-being. For myself, you know, I follow a very kind of research or academic understanding of well-being, and that's also to point out that that's not a lay definition of well-being or well-being, a definition by common people in the street, so to speak. It's actually the definition that I'm following is a bunch of really academics and what they think well-being is. So feeling good, functioning well, doing good, those sorts of things. That's what I mean by well-being. It's about what's going right with you rather than what's going wrong with you. But your other point about, you know, it's a term that overlaps with all sorts of other things: quality of life, wellness, happiness, you know, so flourishing. What exactly is well-being per se? So I guess my point would be really, it's a great place to start any kind of program is to check in with people and say, what do you understand by the term well-being? Because people will have different understandings, and it's not really helped by the media who conflate the term well-being and wellness quite a lot, and when really they mean physical health, or they're actually talking about ill-being rather than well-being.
Yeah. So would it be correct to say that there's actually no one universal agreement or definitions when it comes to well-being?
There's no agreement. The only agreement is that it's a complex construct that's multifaceted, has many
Mm,
components to it. I guess the definition that's cited a lot is Felicia Huppert's. It's feeling good and functioning well. A lot of people gravitate towards that, but
yeah.
there's other disciplines as well, like philosophers. Roger Chris sort of says, it's about what's going well in your life, and so it's not just positive psychology. There's many
Mhm.
other disciplines that define well-being in different ways as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the way when you mentioned that it's always important to understand the person's definition, experience of well-being as a starting point in order to have a meaningful conversations, rather than assuming that everyone's have the same understanding when it comes to well-being or well-being practices.
Yeah, another term is mental health. That's conflated a lot with well-being. Whereas I see well-being as a component of your mental health. But when people talk about mental health, they mean mental illness. But
I see exactly. That's good. That's good. All right. We know that the science of well-being is also often associated with the study of positive psychology. So, Aaron, what is positive psychology, and how is positive psychology related to the science of well-being?
well, that's a really good question. I think people conceive of positive psychology starting when Martin Seligman gave his presidential address for the APA in 1998. They sort of say from that point forward was where psychology as a discipline started to focus on well-being. Well-being science is more broader than positive psychology, so you can have other types of scientists beyond psychologists that are interested in well-being, there's sociologists, there are economists, there are plenty. So I think well-being science is really about other disciplines looking at well-being from a scientific point of view. So, and positive psychology is obviously a big part of that because it's carved up a lot of the literature over the last sort of 20 years, more
Mm,
so than probably other social scientists. But that's not to ignore the fact that other social scientists also focus on well-being, whether they be educationalists or otherwise. So, well-being science, to cut to the answer to your question, is just a broader term than positive psychology.
I see. So it sounds like well-being science is almost like a overarching umbrella terms that covers multiple disciplines in which people may tackle well-being from different disciplines, whether it's behavioral science, whether it's economics, whether it's sociology, or even philosophy and theology.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why people are gravitating towards that term is because some people have a bit of an aversion to the term psychology. They think you're going to see a
Mm,
shrink who's going to read your mind. Whereas if you're tapping into the idea of well-being rather than psychology, but also the science part of it,
yeah.
people it's sort of overcoming the pitfalls of the humanistic movement in psychology, which overlaps a lot with the theory and foundation of positive psychology, but didn't take such a scientific approach. So sort of demarcating it in that way as well.
Okay. Yeah. A couple of times, Aaron, you mentioned the word scientific approach when it comes to the study of well-being. Can you unpack for us a little bit more? What do you mean by approaching or studying well-being from a scientific approach as compared to, let's say, self-help approaches?
It means that we set up an empirical study. We collect data, we analyze the data, we ask research questions, we gain ethics approval to make sure a study's been done appropriately. These kinds of things that all follow, the common beaten path of the scientific method to find knowledge. So, sort of the epistemology underpinning this, or how we know what well-being is we've gone
Mm,
through a scientific process. We've followed the scientific method to find out answers to questions by collecting data and empirically analyzing it. Whereas I think other disciplines, again, the humanistic movement didn't really trod down that path so well.
yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it's a systematic approach of gathering information and data analysis, and then formulate perhaps some sort of frameworks or theories, and from there on to inform some of the actual application of practices.
Yeah, but you can use a scientific approach to test those theories and models,
Ah,
um,
yeah, very important. Need to be
rather than just sort
yeah.
of claiming they're true or saying they're a good idea. We're actually testing. Um,
Excellent, excellent. And perhaps you can give us some applications of the science of well-being in day-to-day life.
There are a lot of what we call positive psychological interventions or positive psychology interventions. There's kind of two terms there, basically meaning the same thing. Approaches or strategies or activities aimed to improve somebody's well-being. And there's hundreds in the literature now. There's things like using your strengths more, being more grateful, savoring the now, developing a sense of meaning and purpose. There are an awful lot of them. I think one of the downsides, though, is that Most of them really are about you and your well-being. The vast majority of them are. They're activities that are about making you feel better. They're not so much activities that are about making another person feel better, which is kind of where I'd like to see this should go now. What kind of activities can we do that aren't so much about your well-being, but actually improving somebody else's? They're pro-social. There aren't too many of those. There's hardly any.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to see the well-being from a self perspective, a self-interest. Like you said, that it's so important to see that how else can we improve the well-being of another person, or maybe even within a local community, organizations, or society as a whole.
Yep. So that's again where I see it going. It's just a reflection of the science, and it's only really 20 years old. So what's achieved in 20 years is pretty phenomenal and impressive. But there are only so many people that can do so much with such limited funding. So this is kind of where I'd like to see it go in the future a bit more.
I see. Thank you. Well, for people who are interested to learn more about the science of well-being or positive psychology, or even thinking of doing some further study, what would you suggest them to do, Aaron?
I'd say read a book first. There's great introductory textbooks to positive psychology. I think the late Chris Peterson's one, Primer on Positive Psychology. Yeah. I mean, its last update was 2006, but I think it's a great overview of the field still. And Kate Heffron's and Iona Bonnewell's Positive Psychology, I think it's called Theory, Practice and Application, something like that, is also a really good overview of the field. So those are two great, easy to read introductory textbooks that give you a lay of the land and the main concepts and theories and so forth. So that's a good place to start. But if it's for an educational course, of course, the Masters, which I'm in charge of coordinating here at Melbourne University, is available online next year. So if you have a degree and you're keen to do a MAP or a Masters of Applied Positive Psychology, you can apply for that before the end of the year. But there are plenty other great distance-based providers as well. So I'm thinking of Sue Langley and the Langley Institute provides some distance-based qualifications, and then I guess there are some lighter touch ones. The Coursera course that Martin Seligman put together, and the one that Barbara Fredrickson. So some MOOCs around learning more about positive psychology also.
Yeah, sounds like quite a variety of repertoires, whether it's from just reading a book or maybe attending some courses or even university study. Good starting points as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is that, so what is one thing, Aaron, that you have been doing this week to look after your own well-being?
Sorry, I'll just circle back to the last question. The other thing is join the International Positive Psychology Association, mainly because they have an amazing resource library of videos from all the world congresses and conferences that you can watch and learn a lot about the cutting edge of how positive psychology is developed and so forth. So I think that's a great resource for learning about positive psychology in particular. Yeah. So what have I been doing about my well-being? Well, I guess I've spent 20 years studying this thing, so I've got my recipe for well-being pretty down packed. But it's all the things that you'd expect. I've been going for walks, getting out into nature, doing some exercise. I've been taking time out and listening to music. I've been thinking about meaning and purpose a lot this week. So all the strategies that the science tells us improves your well-being, I've actually make a plan to enact some of them. I think about my day and I think about when am I going to get connection with people that I know and things like that. So I think planning for well-being is important, but I also make sure that I schedule in things that I know improve my well-being.
Excellent. Planning your well-being and intentionally or deliberately practicing or doing it on a day-to-day basis. Sounds great.
Yeah, I'm not just going to hope that it's going to happen. It's too important to me.
Yeah. Aaron, I'm so tempted to ask you for my personal well-being, for you to tell me a dad joke, because I think that you're pretty good at telling dad joke, but perhaps I'll just let you off the hook unless you have this urge to want to share with me a dad joke, because being a dad myself, I can learn to pick another dad joke too.
Sure, okay. What do you call a person who is a specialist in the fabric of denim?
Wow. Mine will be wow, I don't know.
A genius.
All right. Is that your own invention?
No. It's just one that I saw a little while ago.
Thank you. I'm sure to put that into part of the transcript for this series. All right. One last question. Aaron, I noticed that you have a quote on your website. It says, "Prioritize the things that are important to you and the things that bring you pleasure, and outsource everything else when possible. It is one of your well-being philosophies or practices, and can you unpack that a little bit more for us?
It sort of has a little bit to do with meaning and purpose and prioritizing what's most important, but also this idea of simplifying your life in the sense of we end up doing a lot of things out of habit, which aren't necessarily any longer good for us. So thinking about the activities that you choose to do and how they link to what's important to you, and prioritizing those is really important for your well-being, so that you don't get into a pattern of doing too much or doing things that aren't important to you. So just stopping to think about that is really important, and that usually results in thinking about if you can outsource some of the things, or maybe trade or swap with somebody else the things that you don't like doing or aren't important to you, so you've got more time and energy to spend on the things that are important to you, and your mission and purpose and your underpinning values and things like that. So it's a really important step, and it's one that people just don't do very often, if at all.
Yeah, very good, very good. So in a nutshell, do what matters to you. All right, that's good, that's good. Well, I'm afraid that that's all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on board and joining us. And for those of you who are watching and listening, if you want to engage Aaron's consulting or speaking services in helping you, your teams, and your organization to thrive, make sure you visit Aaron's website at aaronjarden.com. I repeat that again, it's aaronjarden.com, one word, aaronjarden.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Adimus from Strength Optimizers. We are here to bring out the best in you through activating your strengths. Once again, thank you, Aaron. Have a great day, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Thank you. Bye.